2025 was my best reading year ever, but that doesn't mean that every book was good. Some of these were 5-star hypes with a 1-star experience. Let's talk about it. As I said, 2025 was my best reading year ever, and that is not an exaggeration. I read a total of 100 books this year, which is mind-blowing because I think the year before, like I think 2024, I read maybe like 60 books or something like that. My reading goal this year was 60, and I most definitely surpassed that, and I'm very, very grateful that I was able to consume so many books. But that does leave me to say not all of them were great. Now, besides me reading 100 books, because that is not the average for me, and that's not the average for most people, so I don't want you to feel like you need to be reading 100 books, 200 books to feel like you had an amazing reading year. Don't want to put that out there and make someone feel that way. These books weren't all bad. Some were just more disappointments or letdowns. There is definitely a book or two on this list that I was very excited and eager for. And then when I got into the book, I was like, this does not feel the same to me. I don't know why. And a lot of these books that I'm talking about or am referring to right now are like part of like a series or something along those lines. So, or just like authors that I tend to gravitate to that for some reason this year it just didn't hit. I think also a big piece of why some of these books are on my list as the worst books I read this year is that my taste as a reader is also changing and evolving, and that's a good thing. I don't know if it's a maturity thing, if I am just really in a place in life where I'm looking for something more or something different, but I will say my taste has definitely changed. And I think it's also okay to dislike a book. Not every book is for everyone, and that is okay. I think sometimes we get really wrapped up in if it is a favorite author or someone that is really loved, or it's your favorite author that you have to love and enjoy the book. And I would tell myself that quite often throughout this reading year, but now reflecting and especially going back down the list of books that I read, and I would look at some of the star ratings that I'd give it, and I was like, that is not accurate. And I wonder if I was giving it a higher rating because I felt the need to give it a higher rating because it was a really liked book, or because I thought that maybe I enjoyed it or had wanted to enjoy it so bad that I did want to give it a higher rating. But I realized you can't do that. You have to be honest. You have to be realistic. When you are rating these things, you are giving a review. You're telling people what your thoughts and opinions are on this book. And so it's important to be honest about that. Some other reasons why I felt like this year was my best reading year yet. I started using all forms of reading. So that was physical books, audiobooks, ebooks, thrifting books, which, oh my God, yes, that's the same as physical books, but it made it so much easier to be able to read physical books because I wasn't spending an excessive amount of money on one book. So if you haven't checked out your local library, if you haven't gone to a thrift store or a secondhand bookstore, I highly recommend that you do. Sometimes you can find amazing finds in incredible condition. I can attest to that. But I started reading my books in all types of formats to make reading more accessible for me. I have a very busy work schedule. It feels like I work 9-hour days, 5 days a week, and my schedule isn't always consistent. And so because of that, it's sometimes hard to kind of find time and ways to fit reading into my schedule. And oddly enough, I did take a leave of absence from work this year, but on my leave, I read less than I did when I was actually working. So there was something about work that propelled me to read more. And I think that's also because I was trying to give more time back to myself. So that meant that I was trying to find any way possible to be able to read on the go. If I'm in the car, listening to an audiobook, reading a physical book when I'm at work, or taking my Kindle with me and reading it on my Kindle. You do not need a Kindle for this. If you have a tablet, if you have an iPhone or any type of smartphone, you can download library apps like Hoopla, Libby, all kinds, and actually have amazing access to all of the books that are out there. Even if you have a Kindle like subscription, like a Kindle Unlimited subscription, or even if you're a Prime user, download the Kindle app on your device and start reading your books. Make it more accessible and easy for yourself. That is one of the habits that has changed my reading experience, I would say, with reading thus far. Now, that's a positive, but a con to that meant that I was consuming books so much so fast that I felt like this year I didn't read a lot of books that felt like there was substance to it. I felt like a lot of the books that I had read, I don't want to say a lot, let me not say that, but I felt like there were some books that I had read, and we'll talk about it here on the list that I have, of course, but they felt like there was a lack of substance. They fell flat to me. They didn't feel like they jumped off the page. Very one-dimensional, not a lot of character building. I don't know. To me, it just felt a little bit lackluster, but I also think that with me consuming the books the way that I was consuming them this year, it also meant that I was finishing a book and immediately jumping back into another book. Now, that is not a negative thing, but I think for me in this case, it wasn't a positive because it made it very hard for me to remember certain elements and details of the books because my brain immediately went from one story to the next. And sometimes I could even find myself mixing those things up. So like I would mix one book with another book and kind of confuse It got pretty hectic. So I think, like I said, going into 2026, we're not going to make ourselves jump too deep into the books. I do want to be able to take my time and spend more time just kind of like really focusing in on the book that I'm in. If I read 2 books in a month, then I read 2 books in a month. I don't think that you need to have an extreme goal in terms of reading. I don't think you have to have a goal in general. Also, with that being said, I was able to explore so many new genres that I would never have explored before. And I actually found a new favorite genre, which I'm so happy about. But I have fallen in love with historical fiction. So please, if you have historical fiction recs, I would love to hear them. But I've also gotten into sci-fi as well. I've read a couple of books this year that were more sci-fi based. And reading just felt different because I was able to explore these new genres and explore new authors. That was one goal I set out for myself at the beginning of this year, was to be able to explore new authors that I'd never read before. Because I think I was really feeling the need to branch out. And I think that was my brain's way of saying that the books that you have been reading are just not giving you what you need anymore. So that has been something really nice to experience, but also kind of frustrating in a sense because I didn't really know where to go. And I think that's also what has propelled me to want to read so many books, but also just not being afraid to be like, all right, this book is not for us, so we are going to put it down. Like, I think that's so important that you are able to be honest with yourself in that way. Do not feel like you have to finish a book. If you are not enjoying the book, just put it down. I like to always say that maybe it is right book, wrong time. So maybe this will be a book that you will ultimately end up enjoying or loving, but maybe this just isn't the right time or moment for you to read the book. So I think it's always okay to put it back down. If it feels like it is something you want to pick up again later, you can always pick it back up again later. So lots of things that I have learned with this reading year, but you came here to find out what my worst books of this year were. So let's get into the list, okay? And please, differences of opinions are allowed. So this is going to be my moment where I'm going to share with you some of the books that just were a miss for me, but that does not mean that I think that these books are terrible. I think that they are maybe good for some people. They just weren't good for me, okay? So if there are any books on here that you absolutely loved, I mean no harm, okay? No harm, no foul. All right, now let's get into it. Now, in my most hyped book category, I really only have one book that I felt like was pretty hyped up. Please. Please, 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 just let me finish, okay? I'm reading the room. I'm hearing the boos, the what the heck, are you crazy? Yeah, okay, hold on. So, This is One Golden Summer by Carly Fortune, and I did not enjoy this book, okay? I did not enjoy this book at all. I am sorry. And I have an explanation as to why I think that. It just wasn't connecting for me this year, and I was at a point where I was like, do I DNF the book or do I just push through it? And if I push through it, can this hurry up and be over? And that was a moment that I should have said, okay, I'm putting the book down and we'll return to it another time. But my silly self was like, oh my gosh, no, I need to read it now because it's summer and it's the perfect time to read it because it's summer. You don't have to do that, okay? I should have put it down. This is probably right book, wrong time. I think I'm going to have to give this one another go, but let me give you my reasons as to why I ended up really not enjoying this book. For one, I did not feel really any connection to the characters or honestly really the story. And I feel a little bit insane and like I am missing something because everyone else that I have seen talk about this book has loved this book. And I'm just here like, did we read the same book? Because what am I missing? Now, to be fair, this book is... it's not a series, but it's interconnected worlds. So Carly Fortune's first book, what is it called? Every Summer After. That book is connected to this book, okay? This features one brother. This features the older brother, I believe. So the younger brother's story is in this one. This is the older brother. So we get to meet our main character from One Golden Summer in this book. And then we get to learn his story in One Golden Summer. However, did not remember a thing about him. Did not care about him. We do get flashbacks of our main characters in this book, so we get like they kind of come up again in One Golden Summer, but nothing felt like it was really connecting for me. I don't know what it was, but I have a strange suspicion that if I reread this book and then go into this, that I may have a different of opinion. I don't know. You let me know. But that's my thoughts on One Golden Summer. I really wish that I would have loved this book more, but it just really fell flat to me, and it felt big. It's not big, but it definitely felt bigger than what this one feels like. I don't know why. I'm sure it's not that much of a page difference. Now, the reason why I did love Every Summer After was because one of my favorite romance books of all time is Love in Other Words, and this had a similar trope to it. Love in Other Words, in my opinion, did it better, but this propelled me to want to read this, and it's set by a lake. Like, Carly Fortune is really good for, like, atmospheric kind of reads, especially, like, an atmospheric kind of romance, so if that's your thing, you'll probably love and enjoy this book like everybody else. I just didn't. I also think another reason why I wasn't feeling this book this year is I think this was the year that I started to realize romance wasn't something that I really craved anymore. I didn't really enjoy reading romance books as much. I found them very tedious and frustrating. A lot of the second act breakup stuff was very annoying to me, so I did not enjoy that element when reading romance books, and so I think that really, I carried that with me when going into this book here. But should I read it again? I don't know. Alright, moving into the next category, that is going to be biggest letdowns this year, and I have a couple, okay? And this first one that I'm going to say, and I don't think this is going to come as a surprise if you've seen any of my previous videos. I actually made a whole video discussing why I did not enjoy this book, but the first one I have is Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. I'm sorry, I mean, I may be getting the booze. I feel like I'm getting the booze, okay? But I didn't enjoy it. I really didn't. I don't know if it was because when I read Fourth Wing and what was the next book? Fourth Wing and whatever the second book was, I can't remember right now. I read those back to back and I was like in there. Like I was really, that story came at a time where I really needed a book that I felt like I could immerse myself in, which it does do that. It definitely does do that. But I think at the end of the second book, which is really bothering me that I can't remember the name. Shelby, please tell us the name. But at the end of the second book, I think I started getting a little bit frustrated. And there is something that I'm realizing now with like romantasy type genre books that I'm not really enjoying so much anymore. For me, I would say I fell in love again with reading because of A Court of Thorns and Roses series. And my favorite book in that series is A Court of Mist and Fury. And it will always be. And I think that book series will always have a place in my heart. But when I say that, I am quite tired of like the brooding male like main character that is really the bad guy, but he's actually like who's portrayed as the bad guy, but he's really the good guy. I don't know. I'm just kind of over that, and then I'm really not enjoying spice so much in books. But I think when we got into Onyx Storm, I felt a little all over the place, and I knew that I was going to be a little bit frustrated going into this book because I think there was such a gap between when I had last read the second book going into the third book, Onyx Storm. And I don't know, it just I was really lost for a good majority of the book. I didn't care anymore about like any of the side quests or honestly the main plot of the story. I didn't care if people were dying. Like, I think that I just really didn't need to read any more of that book. And there's definitely a part of me that's like, I want to read the next book when it comes out, but then there's also another part of me that's like, just don't do it to yourself. Don't do it to yourself, because I feel like you'll really not like the book if you do that. So, I don't know. I think that this was a year of learning and exploring and evolving, so maybe that is why. But I think a huge part is definitely that book felt like there was a lot of filler stuff happening, and it felt long for no reason. I just Next book I have is Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. This one, I believe did I listen to the audiobook or did I read the ebook? I can't remember. I gave this book a 2 stars as well. And Ali Hazelwood, I am starting to, she was like a auto-buy author for me if you cannot see some of the books that are there. But yeah, not so much anymore. I'm finding it very strange how it is even possible for these authors to be able to come out with books, like so many books within a year. And I'm not saying that that's not possible, but I am saying that the quality of the writing isn't the same for me. I did not enjoy Deep End. That felt very, very heavy on the spice. Now, granted, I think that there is a big group of people that do enjoy it, and so obviously this book was not for me, but it was made for someone. But she, I feel like, does so well with writing STEM romances, and I really enjoyed that because it's so fun to read about these like really quirky and nerdy like female main characters, and like they're like obviously feeling some type of way about like the brooding male main character, and then just kind of seeing them come together, and it's like you would never see these two people together, but it's like their relationship is nice. I love that about her writing, but Deep End really didn't do it for me. I felt really bored. I felt like the romance was very lackluster. It honestly didn't feel like those two characters should have ever really even been together. I think after I had first read it, I was raving about it, and I felt like I almost kind of had to rave about it because it was Ali Hazelwood, and it was an author that I had loved and enjoyed so many times before. So I felt like, of course I love this book. I should love this book because she wrote this. No, I didn't. I didn't actually enjoy it as much as I was hoping I would. And again, it's a romance. So you're going to see a lot of these on here that are romances, and I think that also has a lot to do with the fact that I just feel like I am maybe not done with romances, but definitely it's not a genre that I'm gravitating towards so much anymore. Please, let's end the third act breakup. Communication is really important. So can we just do that? The final book that I have on this list is Brimstone. Sorry. I don't know why. I really really wish I understood why, guys, because I loved Quicksilver. I loved Quicksilver. I didn't even finish Brimstone. Can I just be honest with you? I didn't even finish Brimstone, and so maybe this book shouldn't be on this list because I didn't actually finish it. But, guys, I don't think I could get past chapter 11. I think that's as far as I got. Did I even get that far? I don't know. I was listening to the audiobook and I was very excited because I, like I said, really enjoyed Quicksilver when I read it this year. And this just felt very different to me. I think when I started reading Quicksilver, it reminded me a lot of like some of the elements from the Throne of Glass series, which I still haven't finished all of it. But Alien Galathinius, okay, Selena Sardothian. I felt like we got that energy from our female main character, and I loved that fantasy element, that strong female main character. I loved things like that, but this book was really heavy on the romance and the spice from the beginning of the book, and I just didn't enjoy it. It's as simple as that. I really didn't. So these are going to be books that, in theory, when I read the synopsis, sounded really good, but the execution of it fell flat. It didn't quite meet my expectations. So, starting off was a book that was actually a buddy read pick, and it was Light from Uncommon Stars, and this was by an author, I feel like I'm going to butcher her name, Rika Aoki. Sorry, I feel like I really butchered that. I gave this book a 2-star. I do have a lot of thoughts and feelings about this book. I think that what the author was trying to do was good, but the execution of it, like I said, just felt kind of overwhelming, and it felt like a little bit too much and a lot of all over the place happening. Just a lot of things felt all over the place. Nothing really felt like it was seamlessly kind of coming together. I don't know. That was, for me, my experience. And from what I remember of this book, actually, maybe I should pull up the synopsis. A genre-bending novel about a transgender runaway violinist, a demon-cursed violin teacher, and an alien refugee who runs a donut shop. The story follows the intertwined lives of these 3 women as they navigate curses, found family, and love, exploring themes of identity, music, with hope through magical realism and science fiction elements. So that's basically what I was going to tell you. Long story made short, there is, I feel like, a lot of elements that were really beautiful that could have worked really great for a story. But then it started to become unserious. That's the best way I can put it. It just felt very unserious with a lot of heavy topics. So, like I was just reading here, there is a transgendered main character who is also a violinist. And how her story starts is pretty harsh. She's going through a lot of really difficult things. And as I imagine you do when you are trying to navigate who you are and finding it very hard when friends and family do not accept who you are. But then you mix in the fact that there is like this demon that is also intertwined in this book. Now the demon, I don't think really came into play too much until near the end of the book. But there's a woman that basically is a violin teacher who plays an important role in the story, and she is cursed by this demon. And so that felt like, okay, sure that there is some reasoning behind that, which there is, and I'm sure there's more of a symbolic message behind it, but I was just so thrown off by the alien running a donut shop. That really threw me for a loop, and I was like, what is going on? This is just not a book for me. I couldn't focus. I feel like I was just really being thrown all over the place, and it just felt like pick a lane and let's stay in it, because right now there's too much happening. There was too many messages happening all at once that I was very overwhelmed. So this book just really did not do it for me. Another book this year was Phantasma, and I was very excited to read this book, but this one felt very lackluster to me. I think I had built it up in my head based off of fellow YouTubers that I watch on here and other people that I'd heard had read this book, and just the idea of it sounded really interesting, and it did. And I think that that helped me get through the story, but it felt flat. And I think that I kind of would have loved, because this book takes place, I think, in like Louisiana or something like that. I would really have loved to see more elements of like the scenery of Louisiana being brought into the book, and we do get a little bit of that in the beginning, but I just feel like, you know, I want to feel like I'm in Louisiana when I'm reading this book. But of course this takes place in like a mansion of sorts that is possessed, which was interesting. And if you've ever read Caraval, it was very similar to Caraval if you ask me, but there is a subplot of romance, which was cool. It was interesting, but it just felt flat and just not what I really had expected. Book I did give a 2-star. This next book, I'm so sad about it, because when I went to pick this for my buddy read pick, I was just kind of perusing and watching different videos to kind of get inspiration or get recommendations, and I got this recommendation. The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. And let me just start off by saying this book, I'm sure there are going to be people that love it, but I did not enjoy it. I felt like there was a lot of things that were easily guessed in this book. I think it's just so hard to find a good thriller. That's my point. It felt like it was easily guessed. That's it. That's really all I have to say. This just felt like a very easily guessed book, okay? We follow kind of two different storylines. One is of the present day, and what's her name? Carly is our present day main character, and she is the niece of Vivian, who has gone missing and has been missing for 20 years or something like that. And Carly decides, you know what? My aunt worked at this motel in upstate New York, and you know, we don't know what really happened to her, and no one wants to tell me anything, so I'm just gonna go figure it out for myself. Let me go to this small podunk town in upstate New York and try to see if I can figure out what happened to my aunt. We figure it out, and I figured it out pretty early, and I was really disappointed, because that is what carries the story, the wondering of what is going to happen, what is taking place. It didn't hit for me, and I'm really sad about it. This first one that I have, I feel like a lot of people enjoyed this book. A lot of people enjoyed the books by this author. I think I've seen this book that I'm going to talk about and another book, and the covers look pretty interesting. Yeah, I didn't love this book, of course, that's why it's on this list. But that is Not Another Love Song, and that is by Julie Soto. And I gave this book a 2 stars. Again, it's another romance book, so it could just be the fact that my taste in reading is evolving, okay? I'm very much aware of that. But I just did not feel a connection to the story at all whatsoever. I did not care about them creating music. I did not care about the enemies to lovers romance. I did not care about the romance. And I feel like if you're reading a romance book, you gotta be rooting for the romance. And I just didn't. I did not care. It honestly felt like it was not very romantic. It didn't really feel like these two characters actually wanted or needed to be together, to be honest. I don't know. I didn't enjoy it. I will say though, before I just sit here and just say I didn't enjoy it, the book was bad, it wasn't bad. I would say that I didn't enjoy it because of the romance aspect. I'm also really not a big fan of like enemies to lovers or anything like that. I find that to be very frustrating, because again, I'm a very big person I'm a very big believer that communication is key, and let's just not pretend that we just hate each other. Why don't we just have an actual conversation? But long story made short, I did enjoy the musical element to it, because I grew up playing the piano and violin, and so that was one thing that really kind of propelled me. The book starts off really interesting, where like our female main character basically has to play the cello at this wedding. Not, she doesn't really have any time to plan. She's just kind of thrown into it, and our male main character is not very nice. And so I was really thrown off at the beginning because that's kind of just, we're just kind of thrown in there. And so yeah, I didn't enjoy it. This next book I picked up off on a whim. It was available on Kindle Unlimited, and I saw it and I was like, oh, it looks cute, I want to read it. And this book was called All Superheroes Need PR, and this was by Elizabeth Steffens. I gave this book a 2 stars. Say it with me. Why? It's a romance. I just wasn't feeling the romance, but here's why I wasn't feeling the romance. Again, not very believable to me. It didn't feel like these two characters should have been together. It didn't feel like they had a connection. We went from really disliking each other to immediately jumping into bed, and that just felt like, what? How? To me, I just feel like, first off, spice shouldn't be the thing that is propelling the story, should not be the reason why these two are in love and together. And that is what I was kind of getting with this book. Now, what I did like was the fact that our FMC is like this amazing publicist, right? She is the head honcho of PR. She's amazing at what she does. And the MMC is a supervillain. Do we want to say that? He's kind of like the bad guy. And we kind of learned that he's, again, one of those scenarios where he is portrayed as bad, but he's actually kind of good, but he's meant to be the supervillain in the story. And yeah, I don't know. I did not enjoy it. But I thought that element, that juxtaposition between this cute, nerdy, super sweet, kind of almost like pushovery female main character, and this like egotistical, like horrible supervillain get together. I don't know, but oh my god, this next book I have on my list. I am so sorry, Jessica. This was her buddy read pick for whatever it was, July, August, I don't know. But I can tell you what I do know. I did not like this book. Say it with me. I did not like this book. 1 in a Million. And this is by Beverly Kindle. And you know, this makes me upset because I didn't get a chance to read a lot of books by Black authors this year, and that is something that I do want to explore more. A lot of the times I do not do that because they are very heart and gut-wrenching kind of books for me. I don't like to be depressed. You may be saying, well, you read The Nightingale. I did, and I was very much anticipating how that was going to make me feel, but there's something about the hurt that I hurt when I read books by Black authors sometimes. Not all those books are something that I'm going to feel hurt by. I do know that. But long story made short, this book did not make the cut. This is another romance. Surprise, surprise. It was a billionaire romance. I did not enjoy that. And basically the whole premise behind the book is our billionaire is actually our female main character, and she like does it all. She's a musician. She has clothing lines. She does modeling. She does everything, right? And she basically freezes her eggs, and somehow mistakenly they use her eggs, and now she has a child out there in the world. And that's when we meet our male main character. He loves his daughter. Him and his wife are not seeing eye to eye, and so in comes them meeting each other and things evolving. I did not enjoy this book. I cannot tell you how quickly I wanted to finish that book. I think even from the second we picked it, I knew I wasn't going to enjoy this book. There's something about covers that look like this that I don't particularly enjoy. And so yeah, that was just not a fun read for me. gave this book a 2 stars. Next book I have on the list is a book called If I Stopped Haunting You, and this is by Colby Watkins. This one I also gave it 2 stars. This one was really intriguing to me. The premise around this book was that you're gonna take these 2 main characters, our female and our male main character. That was very difficult for me to say, apparently. They're both writers, and they are like rivals, okay? So enemies to lovers type of relationship yet again. But we're going to send them out to Scotland, and they're gonna stay in this haunted castle in Scotland, and that scenery just sounded perfect. We're gonna get a little bit of some haunting. We're gonna get the beautiful scenic views of Scotland, and a cute romance between writers who are also indigenous, okay? They are Native Americans, and I thought that all of those things combined was going to make it for a really fun and intriguing book and an intriguing romance. I was wrong. I did not enjoy this. It was more frustrating more than anything because of our female main character. It was just like the assumptions on her end were so frustrating that it made me want to beat my head against the wall and throw the book, which I may have done once or twice. Just saying. But yeah, I just really didn't enjoy reading that book. I wish that I would have loved that book more. I did think that the elements towards the end, when it came to like the hauntings and the connections and stuff, felt a little weird to me. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes these books just really feel kind of all over the place to me. And just let me know, do you feel the same way, or is it just me? With all that being said, those are all of the books that I have on my list to share with you guys. I do just want to take a moment to say that these books have helped me realize what I love and enjoy about reading and what I don't. And that means that going into the new year, I think I'll be able to focus and find books that I'm really going to enjoy reading. So hopefully I won't have as long of a list as I do right now of books that I did not enjoy this year. But I think that it's important to be able to explore what you enjoy and what you don't, because that's the only way that you are going to grow and learn and understand yourself as a reader, and maybe even as a person. I don't know. Am I getting really deep? Yes. Yes, I am. I think DNFing is going to be so incredibly important going into the new year so that I do not spend time reading books that I do not enjoy, and this way I can spend more time finding new authors that I'm enjoying, new genres that I haven't explored yet, and new books that are just waiting for me to read. I think that is so important, and that's why also I do not want to put pressure on myself going into this new year with some kind of outlandish reading goal. I think I want to keep it a little bit more simple this year. I might just say like 30 books and see what we actually read, because I want the books that I do read going into 2026 to be something that I really can talk about, and talk about in a more positive light, even though this is not meant to be negative. It is just me sharing my thoughts and opinions on how I felt about these books this year. And if you couldn't tell, I've definitely realized that romances just are not for me right now. It's not to say that I will not read a romance going into the new year, but I don't think I will read as many of them for sure. What was the worst book that you read this year? Let me know in the comments down below. I would love to know, because surely I am not the only one that has had a book or two this year that you're like, maybe not. Which one of my books do you disagree with most as well? Let me know that in the comments down below. My next video is actually something that I'm very, very nervous to do, where I'm going to try to do like a 72-hour of quitting, no doom scrolling, okay? I'm going to try to not doom scroll for 72 hours. This way I can also try to fit in more quality time for reading, and that means me maybe underlining or highlighting and really taking time to digest books. We're gonna see how that works out. If that sounds interesting to you and you'd love to see that, then stay tuned for the next week's video. And if you loved and enjoyed what you saw today, please leave me a comment, like, share, and subscribe. I would love to have you here and join the community. But that is all that I have for you guys today in this video. Thank you so much for being here. You do not know how much it means to me to have you spend a little bit of time of your day here with me and just allowing me to have the space to share my thoughts and opinions on books with you. But like I said, that is all that I have. So I will catch you guys in my next video. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.